Okay, let's start the bid board November 6th, 2018. Welcome, everybody. Need to have approval of minutes of the October 2nd meeting. Unfortunately, we forgot the iPads. So those of you that have your phones, we can get you connected through your phones if you want. If not, we'll have to share with what we have.
Motion to approve.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial report, Adam.
Yes. You will see the financial report coming up right behind you because we thought everybody needed to stretch this morning. Nope. We're good.
It should be on both.
Yeah, I'm not, it should be, does it say F?
It does say F. CD drive E is up one right there. CD drive E audio CD.
Okay. Nope. We're good. Let's just go this route. On my computer, which isn't coming up either.
Adam, you can use this one if you need
You
it.
got you have it in front of you?
You want my phone otherwise?
Or,
I get it.
It's gonna be it's a bad morning, Adam.
it's election day. We're all excited, right? All right.
You're not up for
Okay, so 96,248.40 is the number you guys have been hearing all year for your budget. The actual is 64,626.14. Total encumbrances right now $7,522.69. So total available is $24,099.57. Nothing more to add unless anybody has any questions or wants me to.
I've just got a transfer to other funds at $25,000 is for the bridge. Is that correct?
Yes, well, 5,000 should be for the bridge, and the $20,000 that was allocated last year for the
New bridge.
new bridge.
Okay, 5 for the old bridge, 20 for the new bridge.
Correct.
Okay, and then right below that, the surety
Nope,
for,
I'm wrong.
25 for the new bridge, 4,900. You see a 4,900 on the list?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the old bridge.
okay,
Oh, here we go.
okay. Thank you.
Any questions? Entertain a motion to.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 2. Is it plein air? Is that how I say it?
That's correct. My name's Sharpshooter. I am the president of the League of Milwaukee Artists. I don't know if some of you remember last year, you saw artists in the street in August. We had about 40 artists painting West Bend. We'll be doing it again next year, so if you want to mark down the dates 8, 9, and 10 August, that will be the plein air for next year. Now, let me tell you who we are. The League of Milwaukee Artists was started in 1944, so this is 75 years that the League's been in existence. We are a juried league. What that means is you don't just pay your dues and you are a member, you must be juried in. So we have roughly 120 artists all throughout southeastern Wisconsin. 2 years ago, we did change our constitution to say we will support and promote the arts in southeastern Wisconsin. So we're not just Milwaukee. Why West Bend? Why live in Cedarburg? We have a lot of members who are outside of the Milwaukee area. But the idea is to get the arts out to southeastern Wisconsin. One of our members, associate members, is Rick Hartman, the Gallery of Wisconsin Art. And Rick, wonderful in terms of supporting what we're doing. He's offered us the space in there to display the plein air art. So going back to plein air is a French term. It means plein air. So you're out in the plein air painting and recording what is outside. There are no inside paintings, it's all outside. So if you recall last August, you saw roughly 40 artists in the streets of West Bend painting your buildings, painting all of the lovely things around here, painting the parks, painting the river, and then they were on display at the Gallery of Wisconsin Art and all for sale. So people can actually buy the paintings, and we will be doing that again 8, 9, and 10 of August. Now, of course, we are an association. We are not a profit organization. We don't try to get a profit. It's nice if we can break even in the events that we have. So we love it when people in the community get involved, and we have reached out to a lot of organizations in the West Bend area and gotten great support in terms of what we're trying to do. Because you've got the Museum of Wisconsin Art here in West Bend. This is an enhancement. It's not competition. They have the Art and Chalk Fest, and some of the artists from the league were in it. I was one of the artists that was in the Art and Chalk Fest. We're not competing, we're enhancing. That event is the chalk on the streets and artist booths. Our event is artists painting outside throughout West Bend to record your lovely city. That's the whole idea. Of course, the artists want to get their word out there, they want to get something for sale. And as the league, we would like to get the word out about what we do. So we've been networking in West Bend to try to get support and to let you know what we're doing. We are courting sponsors, which means that it's a win-win for everybody. We had a wonderful sponsor, Epic Creative, last year, who donated the $1,000 Best of Show award. We gave out almost $5,000 worth of awards last year for the paintings that were done during the plein air. As part of that, we also have a small art fair. So some of the artists who will be working in the plein air, they will have tents out in the parking lot at the Gallery of Wisconsin Art with a variety of art for sale. And on the Saturday afternoon, there's an open reception when anybody in the West Bend community can come in and purchase the art that has been done. Now, one of the things we talked about for the coming year was letting your residents and letting businesses know that if you want to have your house, I want to say house painted, but then you're thinking about getting into it. If you want to have your house recorded on canvas or your business recorded on canvas, you'll be able to come in advance and probably for about a $10 fee, put a sign that says paint this house or paint this business. And the artist can go around the city and we'll give a list of what people are looking for, and you'll be able to record all the buildings in West Bend in art. And a lot of residents like that. And the idea is that if you want to do that, then you'll get your $10 fee back and take it off the price of the painting that the artist wants to charge. So it ends up being a zero kind of thing for you because the artist will refund that $10. But we want to network and get involved with the community. This is a real win-win-win-win-win kind of a thing. We see everybody winning. The league has joined the West Bend Chamber. We're now members. League of Milwaukee Artists members of the West Bend Chamber. And we've talked with Visit Washington County about joining that organization too to get the word out. So that's the 25-cent tour of what the plein air is all about and the kind of things that the League of Milwaukee Artists can do. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about our membership. By the way, our members are not just oil painters, acrylic, watercolors. I'm a printmaker myself. We also have people like Dan Nauman up here in Kewaskum, who's a blacksmith. He's one of our members. Blacksmithing is an art. We have fiber artists. We have a wide variety. We have potters. We have jewelers. We have a wide variety of artists in the league. So our membership is not limited to just people who paint outside. We have all sorts of artists. And just to give you an idea, like some people say we're elitist. Artists say that sometimes because you don't just pay your fees and become a member. We had 10 people apply for membership in our last round. 3 were accepted. So it's not being elitist, it's being selective. You probably heard the old saying that if you want to play tennis better, you play with somebody who's better than you. Well, that's the idea. We want to have a group of artists that can not just network among themselves, but get out into communities like West Bend and really enhance the arts, because politics are one part of the community, business is another part, the residents another part. The art is one of those things that enhances the environment for everybody in the community. And that's what we're trying to do with the plein air event next year. Yes?
So I want to say personally, thank you for your efforts and what you do. I'm a huge fan of the arts, and So can you talk to a little bit about how last year went? How what the response was? How the artists felt about it? Was it one of those years that you chalk up to? Oh well, we're trying it this year and we're growing it, or was it a real success last year?
As a first-year event, we consider it a success. Now, I live in Cedarburg. We have a plein air in Cedarburg. 150 artists compete every year, and they have to turn artists away. The very same weekend, and Jay knows this, we talked about this. Oshkosh had their very first plein air the very same weekend that we did the plein air here in West Bend. They attracted 24 artists. We attracted 46. And part of that is because our Best of Show award was $1,000. Now, artists are very pragmatic about this. If I can make $1,000 here and $500 here, where would you go, right? We awarded almost $5,000 in awards last year. And we had, Best of Show, first, second, third, and we spread that out so that we actually had a wide variety of artists actually with those awards. Those sponsorships are named for the businesses. So Epic Creative donated the $1,000 Best of Show award. So Joe Rogie actually presented that award, and it was called the Epic Creative Best of Show Award. And if you saw some of our advertisements, Epic Creative was right there in the advertisements. So it becomes a win-win for the business too. You're helping us, but we're also promoting the business and the arts in West Bend. As far as getting back to your original question, as a first-year event, we consider it a success. That does not mean that we can't do better. And in fact, this is a very good date to have this meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the Gallery of Wisconsin Art. We're meeting to talk about next year's event. So we want to start that ball rolling. We were a little bit late last year. We want to get this going this year. As a first-year event, it was a success. If it was a third or fourth-year event, we would still need to work on it.
That's great to hear, though, that you felt positive about the first year, not that you started in the negative and trying to work from there, but if it was a positive, that's wonderful. Can you speak at all to the value or the amount, a range of what some artists may charge for their final pieces?
That's totally up to the artist.
I understand that, but do you have any idea of a range?
I would, just as a ballpark, anywhere from $150 to $500.
Okay.
And each artist will set their own prices. The thing about, I mentioned the signs that say paint this house or paint this business, that's one of those things that's negotiated with the person. And then, of course, because the Gallery of Wisconsin Art is displaying the art, they take their commission. And
Sure.
that's part of the agreement we have with Rick Hartman, is that he makes the commissions off the sales of the art.
I guess that's fair to me. I didn't want to hear a number that was $5,000 or $10,000. I feel like that sort of thing would be non-beneficial to the end, or taken advantage of, if you will, or something like to that effect.
There are some artists who do this a lot, and they will charge more. Some of the winners that we had last year, there are artists who are plein air artists. And what they do is they go from plein air to plein air to plein air, and they're good, and they will make money off of the plein air art. Those artists will probably charge more. But the nice thing about the idea of painting my house or painting my business is you can select from the artist that you want, because most of the artists have websites. Most artists will have business cards and literature, and you can figure out who you'd like, and you can negotiate that fee right up front. So it is affordable art. Last year we had just under 100 pieces of art on display at the Gallery of Wisconsin Art. Just under 100 pieces. I think Rick sold somewhere between 15 and 20 pieces on it. And there were some people that saw their house and they bought it that day. Or saw a scene they've always wanted to have in West Bend and they bought it that day. And that reception open to the public, that's when those pieces of art are on display and people can come in and they can buy it that day and take it home.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions I can answer for you?
I'll just have one comment. I think it was really, really beneficial for the community to have them outside. And there was a gentleman right outside my business, and when it started raining, I just, opened up the door and said, hey, why don't you bring your stuff in?
Like you.
I felt bad for the guy sitting up there in the rain, but it was nice. I wish I had known ahead of time. Because all of a sudden I'm walking and I'm seeing all these people around town. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
But with a smile, I hope.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it always adds value. It always adds value when you bring something like that into a community.
Well, we started planning a little bit late last year. We're earlier this year than we were last year. So, we like people like you to get the word out for us. I mean, that's the thing. Once the word gets out, it's much better. And when I talk with Visit Washington County, there's a great benefit for us to become part of that organization too, to get the word out. So, we plan on doing that.
Anything else, anybody? Well, thank you very much for coming up, and now we'll know what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Adam, I don't know which one of the three of you is going to do the Commons presentation.
Okay, so we got Joe and Isabel.
This is Michael.
Joe and Maggie are here to present on the Commons. And a big thank you to Chris for putting this video together for us. And they'll talk a little bit about the project, but we just wanted to show you the video first. And also, Joe and Maggie, the video first.
Yeah, this is like world premiere, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, my name is Joe Peschel. I am the program director and co-founder of the Commons, and today we're here downtown West Bend doing one of our Hacket Bracket events. The Hacket Bracket is a March Madness style version of a hackathon where we take a real problem and we come up with as many solutions as we possibly can, and we send those through the ringer and we see them turn into awesome polished ideas by the end of the day. We work with college and high school students from all across the region. We get them together on diverse teams. We're mixing them up constantly. We're doing this thing fast-paced. We're coming up with innovative solutions for awesome real problems. Today's is all about the downtown corridor of West Bend. How do we create a more vibrant downtown? What does the new vision look like for a vibrant downtown West Bend? So the teams are going to be talking about how do we activate public spaces. They're going to be talking about how do we activate storefronts. How do we program and get people out and moving and getting through the city, staying in the city, spending money in the city, and doing some great things to improve the economy, to improve the culture, and see an awesome, vibrant downtown. This is true civic innovation, where we're figuring out new ways to engage the community. We're figuring out new ways to activate public spaces and storefronts. This is a new twist on the typical programming that we do. That's very exciting for us. We want students to be working on impactful, important projects, and there's no better way than to figure out ways to impact your community. What we see in students is it's not only just about finding opportunities to do work and opportunities to find a job or an internship, but it's about opportunities to connect with your community, to impact it in your ways. So that's why we're really excited about today's Hacker Bracket in West End. It's going to be a fun day.
So that's the video that was created here. It was really great. And then yeah, I'll let Joe and Nate take it from here.
Excellent. Should we just pop up right here? Is that
Yeah,
right?
I guess. Yeah.
Well, can he?
You guys can actually get closer to the mic.
All right. Well, that good-looking guy on the video said most of everything that we were going to debrief. I first wanted to start off by saying thank you to all of you. That was an incredible day. We had a really great group of diverse students coming in from Milwaukee on a bus. We had students from MSOE, UWM, Marquette, UW Waukesha. We had a bunch of students from UW Washington County, some local high school students as well, joining us for that day. And as you saw, there's this really great opportunity for them to do a non-traditional version of a hackathon. We are often doing things in this tech, and there's one business presenting a problem sort of thing. This is our first foray into really digging in on the civic side of things and looking at what community innovation looks like. And we got great feedback from them. It was one of those more eye-opening moments where they really adopted a sense of how they can impact the community around them. And it was with your hospitality, with your support, mentorship. I recognize a lot of the people in this room because you were active and participating that day. It was really cool to see West Bend kind of open up its doors and bring these students in and see what they could create. And I know we've got shots of all the different ideas that they came up with in the morning. Again, we had several rounds of different problem-solving exercises that were looking at activating the storefronts, engaging the public, and then utilizing public spaces. Came up with a bunch of different ideas there, and then we tasked them in the afternoon to go break out into some of the storefront areas around town and polish up an idea and come up with something into a 5-minute presentation at the end. The winning idea, I am still like really jazzed about. I'm not sure if you've heard of this yet or if these were shared out, but it was called In Residence, and unique styling on the name is In Blank Residence. And so they were looking at how West Bend could be the country's first mentorship-driven community, where you could have a space utilizing one of the storefronts that would house an entrepreneur in residence, an artist in residence, a musician in residence, a restaurateur in residence, and basically say if anybody is interested in pursuing any of these careers or passions, come talk to us. We'll help you get your start right here, and use that mentorship model to really activate a community. And we thought that was just incredible. I don't think there was a single amount of like debate as to whether or not that was the first place team. All the debate later on came for the second and third place. Who would take that prize home? So we were really pleased with it. I know Maggie spent a lot of time with all the students that day. I was doing more of the facilitation of the exercises, and so she heard some feedback, and I let her share some of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, some of these students we've worked with before in our other programming, to what Joe is saying, I think to be able to translate what they might normally do in more like obvious innovation tech space and then layer it into the community was a really interesting exercise for them. And for the students that we haven't worked with before, being able to see, a pretty accessible community that's looking to figure out ways to increase vibrancy and foot traffic and all of that, that there was some feasible and pretty easy ways to do it. So you kind of had that spectrum of, dreaming big and then some really kind of easy things you guys could all pull out to test out over the year. I think they all enjoyed getting to explore West Bend. As Joe said, we had students stationed in a couple of your different storefronts, and so that actual moving around was really a good experience for them. Often we're usually just in one place, and so it's even cool for us to be able to have that type of movement throughout the day. So I think that was received really well. Being at the museum was just a beautiful backdrop to have for the day as well when we were all together. So it was a good flow. I think that the energy was there and just a lot of really good ideas. So I heard just a lot of good positive feedback and a good exposure to a different community that's not very far away from where most of them are in school or living. So yeah.
We had a few students that joined us on the bus from Milwaukee that grew up here in West Bend, and that was a really interesting thing to get their perspective. Tyler was one of them. Right?
Oh, sure.
And he was saying well, there's this whole new thing that I had no idea was even being talked about in the background of West Bend. And so I think that brought a new sense of pride for him. It was really neat to see. And I know since several of you were there that day, we welcome any feedback as well. We came back a few days later, caught lunch with Adam, and did a debrief. And thanks, Chris, for the awesome video. You got some documentation on that. But anyone else wanted to share some feedback for us? We're always looking to improve. It's always a new experiment for us. This is a new community, new format, new type of challenge.
Not having been there, where are we going from here?
So I was just going to say, Adam, where are we at with the
It's on me right now.
culmination of stuff?
Yeah, it was a full day of ideas, and you saw all of that stuff on the walls in the video. that's still in my office, still taking all of those and summarizing every idea from each of those sections and getting that out to you guys, and then taking those final ideas too, piecing together, taking what's good, and coming up with a few recommendations for a future meeting. That's where I'm at. I haven't given you guys anything yet as far as all of it to pour over, because just a snapshot of some of just the pictures wouldn't make a lot of sense without some context.
I would just like to say, there were a lot of great ideas in the morning that kind of got buried in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing all this stuff distilled down into some useful information. I'm sure Adam's working on
Oh, yeah. It's not a quick task.
that. I'm sure that.
Yeah, there was a lot, having been in there in the afternoon and kind of popping in, I unfortunately couldn't be there all day as I'd originally planned, but I think, and the judging was very interesting at the end, how we came to the conclusion, but looking at what was on the walls, like Larry said, there's a lot of things, there was three things of, first, second, and third, but quite frankly, if you look at first, second, and third, if you take parts out of each one of them, I think there's a lot that we can ultimately come home with, and what didn't even get to the level of first, second, and third. So I think there's a lot of interesting ideas. The one that I thought was, and where we got in the big discussion at the end, was the one group that ultimately ended up in third, and the reason they were in fourth was because they wanted to close Main Street completely. But once we took that out of the mix, there's kind of rose to the top, rose to the third level. But
That defeats the purpose.
Wasn't it dog friendly?
Yeah.
it was dog friendly though,
Closed
yeah.
it hard,
So
it's not closing.
okay.
Yeah.
No, they liked the.
yeah, no, they wanted it closed off to
Just
vehicle
Like
traffic.
like
It's
Madison,
going to be this big
right? Like
park.
State Street.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
This
that's what they
this thought's
talked
crossed my
about.
mind before.
It's going to be it was going to be a big park.
Yeah.
So.
They actually came up with a bit.
So it was. Yeah, I think there was a lot of interesting things. Kathy, you were there all day, so.
Yeah,
you have
no,
more-
I thought it was interesting and valuable. I think the one disappointment that I had was that we had 17 students when initially when we were discussing the program, it sounded closer to 100, I thought. But, and when I think about the volume of ideas that we had, it was great, and it did generate a lot of ideas, but I also see that there may have been a missed opportunity in that had we had that many more students, there would have been that many more ideas flowing. So,
Yeah, we were also disappointed where we shoot for 30 to 40 for these types of events. We've done 100 once over
Okay.
2 entire days, like 32 hours long. That was pretty extreme. But yeah, we ran into some issues where all the local high schools were doing homecoming that weekend, which kind of dampened us a little bit there. Yeah, so it's hard to predict with students who's going to be signing up and showing up. Fortunately, we had a lot of hits to the webpage, so that's always a good sign that people are sharing it out, and we had some good help with the folks that run the, it's called Inspire program here, so they help share a lot of that, as well as our academic partners in the area. And then we had a lot of good follow-on PR material, and so we were posting a lot of content on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, those sort of things, and driving a lot of follow-on traffic from that. And so we've actually been contacted by a couple other organizations saying that this type of civic innovation and looking at the neighborhood aspect of things or the city aspect of things, they're inspired by what went on here. So they want to learn more about how this all operated.
I think we had some good conversations with students who weren't even there asking about it after the fact, and even just last night I was talking to some students at an event, and they're like, oh, like what was, that? So they were excited to hear about it, and so whether it's scheduling conflicts or whatnot, I think it's good that they're asking because it shows that they're curious and still looking for those opportunities. So we'll just know, that we'll have to approach things maybe a little bit differently or whatnot, but I think that for the 17 that were in the room, they were all, really jazzed to be there and really did a great job. So that's also
Adam, what idea caught you off guard? Surprised you the most?
This question.
questions?
I don't know. Right now I've got the lights and the water paint one in my head. It was a lot of color. It was, and actually meant to go to the students after everything was done and talk. And I thought it was really interesting. I said, "So you've never been to West Bend before? What is West Bend?" And her response was West Bend, or what is downtown West Bend? Her response was downtown West Bend is almost. It's always just almost. And then rolled into color. And it was a dark, dreary kind of type day too,
Yeah,
so that added to it. But it was a lot of color talk, more like that.
That's a great observation. I like the one where it said the river is this really fantastic feature of downtown. So what if we just dumped a bunch of boulders in it to create more of a rapids look? Like you get more sound, you get more. It's actually kind of an interesting idea. I don't know what it does ecologically, but dumping a bunch of boulders in the river, cool.
Adventure sports.
Yeah, they wanted to
Them
do
too.
more.
Yeah, they want to do like
Yeah.
Strategic place.
Any other questions you guys have for us?
What do you think your greatest takeaway was? Is this your first time in this account?
For just our experience being a part of West Bend, I talked about this before. I think, one, it tested us logistically to see what that meant, that type of movement. But again, I really liked that because I think it made everything much more real. So I really enjoyed getting to have, them go around and see like, oh, that's what that is. It wasn't like this lofty thing far away. So I really enjoyed kind of that experience throughout the day and getting to kind of help show it around.
Yeah, for me this was, aside from the 2-day, 32-hour version of things, which just gets weird overnight, this was our most unique version of this program that we've ever run. And so it was a great test to see how students would interpret the concept of civic innovation and changing a community and doing this type of work around that. So to see how they approached it, to see what they came up with, and to see the experience that they had around it was a really fantastic thing. Probably the bigger one for me though is I grew up in Slinger, so I spent a lot of time in West Bend, and I know this community. And so to come back and see how much interaction we could create with you all, with the actual like being down here and engaging both like physically and in person with people in the spaces was just this massive opportunity, and I think that went extremely well. And so there's a new bar that's been risen, and for us to do these types of events, we're looking for that type of engagement from a community, especially as we are now starting to run more programming in different locations. We got comfortable in Milwaukee, and we have a space, and it just sort of like does its thing right there. But now that we're starting to pilot some things in Madison, this weekend we'll be in Beloit doing that sort of stuff. We're trying to find those people, those spaces, and that type of local engagement. I think that just seals the deal for students, experientially speaking.
But once we actually go through all the information, will you guys be available for questions if we have that? You're not just like done and leaving West Bend now, right?
That is correct.
Okay, like you're out of town.
Yeah, that's a lot of what Adam and us, we discussed over that lunch. He's just like, this can't be it, right? We're like, no, this is going to be really fun to see
Okay.
how some of these can go forward. And I know even some of the students in the conversations at the end of the day, they were asking about how to get more involved in these sort of things. Adam, I think you said internship, and someone's like, hey, I'd be interested in that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to you re-engage those students, but then also our team as well.
Okay, perfect.
That's
Thank
a
you.
fun opportunity. So, again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for the job.
Any other questions? Item 4, Doug, wires on buildings.
Morning.
You're gonna have to come up to the front so we can.
So recent discussion has occurred between myself and Adam. I asked him to run away. but I asked Adam to look into any information he had on these cables downtown that string between buildings across Main Street. So earlier this year, we were asked by German Fest about the cables, who owned them, if they could put things on them, such and such. And I really didn't know that answer. I asked Adam if he could find some information. He really couldn't find any information documented on these cables as far as who owns them, who's responsible, things like that, who can use them. And now recently, we were approached by a company that wants to take down the sign at the West End Theater. They wanted to remove the cable, and they put it back up when they removed their sign. So this kind of brought up the conversation again, is we need to look into who's responsible, who takes ownership of these cables. That's why we're here today. So I guess I'm here to discuss, I guess, who owns the cables, who's responsible for the cables, who's responsible for liability, if the cables fail, if the buildings fail, things like that. Because the city is concerned about the liability if someone gets hurt or property damage to private property. There are a few cables that were installed in 2013. Those are the two in the center of the city, the ones on the Centrum building and by Mount Forest. The other two have been up quite a bit longer than much.
So I'll look to Herb, because if my recollection is correct, originally German Fest put those up, correct? To put the German Fest flags across between the buildings?
Yeah.
And then what I remember is when the bid decided to do the Christmas swag across, the bid paid to upgrade the cable and did the two additional, and then they reinforced or did some different bracketing, from my understanding, on all of them, so that they would be more secure and be able to handle the swag and the weight of that swag from snow and everything else. And that was done by DPW. And when the bid paid for all of that, and then once it was all completed, that all got turned over to the city as part of the Christmas decorations. So to answer your question of who owns them, the city owns them. And who's responsible for them? The city's responsible for them. It all kind of falls onto the city. So that's why in the past, when the new German Fest group came and they asked the bid, can we put them on? It was relayed back to the city the city to say yes or no. They're not the bids. So we use them for the Christmas, the Christmas decorations go on them, but it's all city property, so to speak. So the bid turned that over. I don't remember exactly when that was, but
Who negotiated the which buildings they were going to go on to, or who talked to the building owners about placement of them?
well, I think originally Herb and the German Fest group probably did, and then
Right.
the additional ones were done, and the upgrades was done by, I think, Amanda from the City Hall at the time.
I can't remember completely on this thing, but I remember we had some kind of paperwork on it that when we put the cables across for German Fest, there was some kind of paperwork for the building owners, and I don't know. I think the city took care of it. I'm not sure.
So the concern that we have, I have, is my history with these cables. I was part of the new install in 2013. The two center, the other ones were just reused the existing brackets over there, but I believe the cables were replaced. The two in the center are mounted to the front facade of a building. with the brick and through the brick. And those, with the amount of weight that's on these things and the age of these buildings is what is a concern of mine. And if the weight on there with the snow, and that would pull out of the building, damaging your building or one of your buildings, who's responsible?
Or hurting
This is,
somebody.
I talked with Jay and Ian about this, and I think we all believe there's some type of action that needs to happen, whether it's the city deeming them unsafe or the bid releasing the city of reliability, or liability.
The bid can't release the city of liability because we're part of the city.
Okay, I think
So
we
that's
need
kind of a hard thing for the bid to do.
The building owner document that Herb referenced, Adam found, can you share, Adam, what you found in the files regarding those documents?
Yes, I'm taking all the pull up right now. So,
Verbally.
it would, they had each building owner sign off on that they're okay with it. How'd this go? 2013, everybody, there was a letter sent out saying, we're gonna ask you guys to sign a follow-up document. In the original letter, what was it? It mentioned we want to do the German Fest flags, but at the same time, you guys had already been talking about the decorations as well. So then, it was just presented in that way. There's not much more I can add to that.
But the building owners released their liability. They're released of their liability.
Correct. They said, yeah, you can do this. And
But we're not responsible for any damages or.
yeah, I'd have to just double check the actual wording on it. But
Yeah, I mean, if it claims that the city is responsible, then, if they allow them to use their building, let's say it's attached to Mike's building, Mike says, go ahead, put it on my building. If any damages occur due to this, you're going to be responsible for it. You're going to be responsible if the wires fall and hurt or injure pedestrians. If bricks fall, you're going to be responsible for hurting or for injuring pedestrians. That would be how I would assume that document reads.
I would assume the same thing, and I guess the thing that I question is, I remember vividly a long conversation about the weight and everything else, and it's why those big plates were put up, why all the extra bolts were put in. I think engineering was involved in it, and so I'm questioning the question from the standpoint of, okay, if that was all done by the city, are we all of a sudden saying now what was done in 2013 really wasn't done up to what should have been done to make sure we don't have a problem with it? Because we wouldn't have invested in all the ornament, the decorations, if this wasn't a viable and feasible thing. So why all of a sudden now, 5 years later, are we questioning what the city did and how well it was done? I can see the two that they didn't have a hand in, but I also remember there being a conversation of those are okay and we don't need to do all this extra steel work and put in all the extra anchors. So my fear is where we're headed here is, okay, we're going to abandon these cables and we're not going to be able to have the Christmas decorations again.
for for the document, it's not. I would also suggest that Ian comes up with something new too, because all it does is say we're giving them permission to hang all of these things during the season, during the seasons.
It doesn't talk anything about liabilities
No
or.
liability or anything like that. It was just all very quickly put together, and we just asked that they sign and return. They're going to be hung in the same locations as where the snowflakes and the German Fest flags were. It just really describes what it's going to look like, but an attorney wouldn't.
In the very least, I would agree with clearing up the language of that.
I don't have a problem with that, but I'm going to have a problem if all of a sudden we say,
I agree.
we got to get rid of these and you got to get rid of the decorations. And we worked long and hard to be able to get them, and you know.
So to be clear, Ian's recommendation wasn't that the bid indemnifies the city from everything. It was that his recommendation, and maybe it's a moot point, Mike, as per those decorations are now ours, but it was an agreement that he was suggesting that you wouldn't claim damage of and make the city replace the decoration. So the cost of the decorations is what he was getting at. If the cables failed and the decorations were damaged, I think his couple of sentences of advice was that the bid indemnify the city against any loss or damage due to the cables and the
I think
holiday
that,
decorations.
And I think that's
sounds fine.
I
Yeah.
think that's fine, and I think that's already been done, but we could do it again. But I think that was done when the bid gave the decorations over to the city. The agreement was that the city would take ownership of them, but the bid would continue to maintain them. So if they get damaged, I would think that would fall under the maintenance, and we don't have an issue with it.
Well, what about the other liabilities that come along with
Yep.
your issues that you brought up, Doug?
Well, that's why I was here for discussion.
Yeah.
I wasn't privileged to that information, so that was prior to me being charged, so that's why the discussions came up between us, and we thought it was best to bring it to the board, bring up the discussion. because-
You know, I think that it's fine to clear it up, but what this sounds like to me is that the city attorney is suggesting that the city might potentially already be up against some fault, or that, like, you don't feel confident in the installation of these, and that you're trying to just guard against any possible things down the road.
I'm not a structural engineer, but you know, these buildings are old.
Shouldn't we have this evaluated though, from time to time, like anything else structurally? Don't you have that evaluated by a structural engineer to make sure that it is sound?
We haven't.
And maybe that's something that needs to be done?
What does the city's insurance, have you checked with the city's insurance on this?
I have not.
I think that's where I would first start, is with the city insurance, to see if it's even covered.
I mean, I guess my initial thought is, you know, you bring up a lot of good points, and they're very scary, thinking about, you know, the rabbit hole that comes with liability and the what ifs, but I think from what it sounds like, you're just looking to make sure that the city is just looking to make sure that they're not responsible for the decorations if they break. And I think that's fair, but it doesn't sound like they're trying to release any liability from the installation of those decorations being there. So I guess
When it comes to the law, we shouldn't assume. It looks like you're reading something that
Yeah,
you
no.
proposed, and you have a document. I'm a building owner with the cable. I obviously am the successor owner to a previous agreement. I'd love to see it. I'd love to start with it. And then we can morph it into what makes sense. Because we just keep talking about assumptions.
So the trigger for today's conversation was the blade. Peggy, will you explain it? I overheard you explain it. Will you explain the reason the blade is being, the West Bend blade, they call it the blade?
Oh, yeah, there's the blade, ooh. The sign is just being removed so that it can be repainted and the bulbs replaced and redone so that they can put it back up.
Yes, so that they can put it back up. Just so the viewers don't think that the blade, the historic West Bend sign is
Right.
coming down.
Right.
It's coming down temporarily, but for a significant period of time, like
Right.
next fall-ish.
I mean,
Right,
there,
a full year.
there's gotta be other cables that the city's gotta cross different areas and stuff. What does the city's insurance say about that? Does the city's insurance, what does it cover?
I'm unaware of any other cables.
Well, I would put it just the same as a stop sign hanging over the street. I mean, I would think that it falls in the same category as the traffic light, you know? So,
Well, those things are municipal owned on municipal property though. These are on a private building, private property, so my concern was if the cable pulls out of the Centrum building and there's a big hole with brick there, who's responsible for that?
We technically own the cable, we don't own the building that it attaches to.
That's my concern.
I would guess that if there was a big hole pulled into the side of Tony's building, Tony would be looking to the city to be fixing his building, like any other building owner would be looking. So I think you need to get.
That being said, the city is responsible for the cables and the city could deem these unsafe and remove them. so we're not.
Well, I guess my charge back to you would be, kind of taking off of Kathy, is to figure out how we clean up the paperwork, which is an Ian thing, and then figure out how we determine the safety or whatever of the, and the installation of those cables, and figure out how we can keep them there and not just make them deemed unsafe and we not continue moving forward with them.
Yeah, we're not just looking to tear them down, Mike, we're looking.
Right, no,
to
that's what I'm
find a
saying.
solution.
So let's figure out how we can, everybody can have a comfort level, and then come back to another conversation of this, because otherwise we're just gonna go in circles. And in the interest of time, I think we ought to just, there needs to be some more research done to make that happen.
Sound like there's liability is three-pronged. It's to the persons that might be walking over something that falls. There's the maintenance of the actual decorations, and then there's damage to the potential building. So, I guess we'd look to Ian to draft something, and the business or building owners have to be comfortable with it.
Yeah,
I do think you
unfortunately-
should check your insurance. It's a great idea.
Unfortunately, Ian wasn't able to make it today. We did ask him to come get a prior engagement.
Even to talk, at some point you're gonna see something writing. So I'm not seeing anything. I've just heard all this stuff. It'd be nice to see what exists already, and what the language is, and what the insurance coverage is.
And I would hope that the engineering department could take a look at those.
Well, you do an installation every year, I think, with lift trucks, right? So somebody's up there, so maybe a normal inspection happens at the same time, as far as someone would be a good judge with the weight to know if they're in good shape.
Doug, are these cables left up all year long?
Yes.
Is there maybe a benefit to removing them during the time that there's nothing hanging from them, just to alleviate any additional stresses on them, or is it not
Look at it both
not
ways.
specifically easy to remove them and put them back up?
Expense-wise, because our department doesn't have the equipment to do it, so. But I guess that was what started this whole conversation. Is there was a private company wanted to take it down and put it back up, and I didn't feel comfortable having them putting that back up because there is tension put on it, and the city's responsible for it. I didn't feel comfortable, so that's what started this conversation.
It's like turning
It's
turning a faucet that has corrosion on it. The more you mess with it, the worse it's going to end up being. Yeah.
We can do a little more research on our end, and like Jay said, we're not looking to tear them down or come up with a reason to tear them down. We're just trying to cover our bases.
But that's a possibility. If you can't come to a reasonable solution and the city's going to be on the hook for this, you may make that recommendation to remove them. Okay.
But we only use them twice a year, right? That's it? That's the only time we use them is for German Fest and for Christmas lights? Then I guess I would also like to see what it actually would cost to take them down, because what's the sense of leaving a wire hang across the street for
Blowing in the
11
wind
months
and-
out of
yeah.
the year?
It'd be expensive.
Yeah.
You're talking
A lot of money.
Is it really? Well, what's a lot of money?
man hours.
More,
prob-
okay, more money than what it would cost to
Oh, probably
replace a portion of a building?
Depend.
Right. So I mean, it'd be interesting to know those numbers, though, and we could weigh that out and then weigh out the
You
opportunities.
could probably also argue by going up and down, and releasing, and, you know, you could be messing with.
that you're weakening the.
That's an engineer
right.
thing.
Yep.
So in interest of time, because we unfortunately have a hard stop here with this room, if you could research some of that, Doug, and then we'll have to go from there, and I assume we'll use them for this Christmas, because we're scheduled to put the decorations up in a few days here, so. And then we can keep digging into it. Yep, so Christmas decorations, lighting discussion and decision. So it sounds like we're looking at
I guess since Doug's there, when is the Christmas decoration?
15th, isn't it?
Yep, November
What I heard.
15th.
Okay.
Anybody like to help? 8 o'clock. Meeting at the Free Street Lot again.
What day of the week is that?
Thursday. Rain or shine, we'll be out there.
You said 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
All right.
November 15th, Victory Street Lot is where we meet. So we'll have our crews out there. same as last year, putting the sprays by the pole and many ladders. And fine.
Larry, you wanna take the bull?
You mean as far as
The reindeer?
The reindeer, yeah. It's been proposed that, and you, Doug might like this from one standpoint, but it's been proposed that we put some lighted reindeer downtown as a recurrent theme in different areas. And we have a map here that, if you put your glasses on, you can probably see the little red dots on the maps. Be on the second page. In all, there's 42 deer that could be displayed downtown. Now, that doesn't mean that we'd have to do that many this year, but rather than just having piecemeal, a couple here and a couple there, I think these spots have been looked at as far as the availability of electricity. I'm not sure they all have it, but one of the areas is down at the entrance to the south end of Main Street, which is by Westbury Bank, and then some over on Tony's property, and then on the corner by the across from where the paint store used to be, flower shop. And then there's the Time Investments has a little spot that might work out. Vest Park, Settlers Park, and then the North Circle. I think that it's getting to be the 11th hour here. We don't really have any of these deer in hand, but Chris and I ordered some just so we'd be able to see them. Figured we could use them if the bid decides not to go in that direction. I don't know how we would work purchasing these, but we could get 36 deer for around $2,300 or 42 for $2,600, $2,700. The shipping is free. Probably be tax involved. And, the part I think Doug won't like is where we can store these things.
That's what I was gonna ask. So we buy the deer and then the city gets responsible for them once we're done?
Well, we would be more than happy to donate them.
Well, we can't own them.
Yeah, right.
So
So
there's two options. You could have the downtown association own them, because some of this is going into the pocket park and that, and we could, do something with them, and they could buy them, and they can maintain, take care of them. We could do a maintenance thing with it or whatever, or we could tie them into the Christmas decorations and have the city take them.
Larry, does each dot depict a deer or a family of deer?
Deer, individual use.
Jay's looking at this saying they're trying to get rid of the deer. They just hired Sharpshooter. And now we're bringing deer in.
That was my first thought.
Unless they don't get shot.
Oh, the irony.
Maybe we could just stuff the deer they're getting.
I watched Fox attack one of these
I-
things.
We weren't proposing these to take the place of the cables across the
As with anything like this, the opportunity for vandalism or theft is really,
Yeah.
really high. I think it's a wonderful idea. I just think logistically and practically it is a tough sell for me.
That was definitely something that got was discussed briefly, and I think that's something that we've talked about every time that something like this comes up, be it the flags or the nativity scene or the even the lights on poles and stuff. But I feel like we've been really fortunate, in downtown that there hasn't been a lot of those incidents, and while that was one of my first concerns, I definitely would be willing to try and give it a shot.
I'm on the same boat, Brian. I don't like to look at the community as a
Right.
bad community.
Sure.
I think in general we have a very nice, responsible, and respectful community. So I'd like to see things like this happen without any backlash of,
Right.
oh, well, you can't do that because they're going to get stolen or damaged, but the potential is there.
Absolutely.
But okay.
So in interest of time, I'd like to propose that we test it in Settlers Park and do your family in Settlers Park and see how it works.
I'd like to see you do the whole thing. I think you keep talking about making West Bend a destination, and I think to decorate the downtown is important, to have people want to come here in the winter months, my opinion.
I don't disagree. I think there's a lot of questions though, where they're gonna be stored, who's gonna
That's
own
true.
them,
That's
all of that
true.
kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
if we do it in Settlers Park and kind of work through, work the kinks out, and then figure out how we move forward and do the rest of them. I love the idea.
Oh, I love the idea.
I think-
I'd love to see the whole thing
Well,
done.
we just ordered one set of 3 so we can get a size and what they look like during the day.
Like I
Put
said,
them anywhere you want.
I guess that's what I'm saying is let's see what they, size-wise, how they look, what we do with them. And then I think for the quantity you're doing, I don't know where these are coming from.
Yeah, it may
oh.
be getting to the point where we might not have them in time for Christmas parade.
What is the total cost?
It's variable, however much we want.
Yeah,
If we did every single one that he's marking on here, it'd be $2,600.
I don't, $2,600 to what we have downtown here, I would go along with you and say,
Let's
you're gonna do it all the
all,
way.
Do it right, and make
and
the
do it
downtown
right,
look nice
and,
have it be a destination.
The only caveat I have is we don't have them in hand, and I want to take a look at them before we.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't even know what they look like.
Is there electric too in all these spots? Because it says it's got a 5-foot lead cord, so they gotta be plugged in.
Right.
So is there
There-
electric in all the
there's-
little spots that we've,
In most of the spots that have been looked at,
There was.
there's accessible electricity.
okay.
But, for instance, the North Circle has electricity, but I don't believe they have any outlets. But there are some on the light pole, at that little turnaround.
Can't we just hang a cord off the table?
Just roll it
Throw it over.
So, I mean, that would be something that we'd have to, this is just a proposal today, but it is, November.
It'd almost have to be acted on pretty quickly
Yeah.
to
It's
coincide
gotta be
with
acted on
the.
right now.
So
Yeah.
I guess maybe permission to, order them for the places that have electricity now. Or
I think,
I don't know
I
how
think
to
Christmas
propose it.
decorations are one of those things that you sort of got to make little purchases here and there to keep them fresh because they depreciate and they get old. And we haven't had any major Christmas purchases in a couple years. We've been really good with. Doug spray painted all the bows last year to save us some money there, and so I definitely think this is a worthwhile investment. And while I agree that, and I would almost recommend that maybe we, rather than going with all 36, maybe we just, pick a dollar amount. I'd almost make a motion to.
It reminds me,
approve.
it reminds me of years ago, when Mr. Huzar was here yet, your father, and we did the decorations downtown. We bought barrels, whiskey barrels, and filled them with, I can't remember, I think it was sand, planted Christmas trees in them all up and down Main Street and decorated the trees and plugged them in the poles, the light poles, and it looked good. And they lasted for maybe 2-3 years, and then we did something else. So, you got to change things downtown, and you go along with it. I don't know, at that time, we maybe spent about $500. That was, at that time, that's many years ago. Today, we're looking at $2,600. To me, I take the $2,600 and put the deers out there and see how it works. It's only going to last for 3 or 4 years, and somebody's going to come up with a different idea, and then we'll spend another $3,600.
Question for Jay or Adam: what's the dollar threshold where we have to get bids?
decoration signature.
Is it 2,500 or is it 5,000?
How about we just make it safe? And
Well, that's what I'm just
I'll make
asking,
a
so
motion.
we
You're
can
just
go
looking at
under.
budget, Adam, right?
Yeah.
That's not the question.
That's not what I'm
No,
asking.
you're
What's
wondering how much
what's
we
the
have to
legal?
spend.
No.
What's
No.
the legal? Where do we have to? So we don't have to go get competitive bids. Is there a dollar amount?
Right,
I mean, there is.
yeah.
I know, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we're under it.
For something disposable.
For public construction, I don't know about purchasing materials or consulting fees, all that is different. For public construction, it's $25,000. So that I
We're
know.
way under that.
But yeah,
Okay.
we talked $5,000.
I think it was $5,000. Okay, so
Well, I'll go ahead and
so
make-
then go ahead and make your motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the spending of up to $2,600 on reindeer lights for Christmas decorations.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, sorry. Well, it did carry.
I know. I can say it anyway, right?
Michael, when you find a deer on the Eisenbahn, just bring him back.
Yeah.
Okay.
My biggest concern is the storage. I mean, we
I'm
buy them,
concerned
and then
too.
where are we going to put
understand,
them? We haven't discussed any options for that. I would have liked to hear at least 2 options for storage
You don't want to put
before.
them in your garage.
I do not have a big enough garage. Otherwise, I'd love
Do you
to.
think- do
I
you
would
think
love
you guys
to.
would be able to construct some of those big boxes possibly
Yeah,
for
I'd
these
recommend doing
again
something like we did before.
with the Christmas
Stay
with the.
safe, stay safe.
Yep.
clean,
Absolutely.
otherwise-
So we're gonna have to be looking at a cost for that. So are we looking at like $500 to do something like that?
You have to see how big these things are.
All right, we'll worry about that. That'll be it. That will be up to our 3,600. Adam, I'm going to ask if we can table item 6,
Yes.
put it to another meeting, and at least give Downtown and Diva. Oh, they wanted 9:50. I thought it was 9:30.
They have their meeting at 9:30. They gotta set, or yeah, they have to set up at 9:15.
Perfect. I'll mitigate. We're okay. You can go.
All right, we know a guy, so we're
Okay.
all set.
All right. So if we can at least give you guys the time to, because you put time into it.
Yeah.
I want to at least go over it.
Don't worry about it. I'll keep up and I'll know what you want.
So this presentation is results from the Debrief and the Downtown Western Association events. So this year, the bid invested $9,625 for marketing the downtown, and this is a recap from last meeting on where the money went and how many impressions we got. The Downtown West End Association also invested in marketing separate from the bid to market our events downtown. And that total was $7,302 this year.
The DV events do benefit the downtown. It shows you the breakdown of the different businesses down there and how many people participate from those businesses. And then just the increase in business on the DV events, which is an average of 655%. And those are sales transactions over a typical day. And our events have brought over 1,000 people downtown.
This is what we estimate that our events draw throughout the event season. So the farmers market, we have 24 dates, May through October, 48,000. Music on Main, we have 14 dates that draw 25,000 people, and I will go more into those numbers when we get them. At the farmers market, we did a market survey. So where are people traveling from that come to the market? At the beginning of the season in May, 76% of people surveyed said they were from West Bend. But then in July, in the middle of the market season, 51% of people were outside of West Bend. 80% of our full-time vendors that are there every week are outside of West Bend, and they're going back to their communities and telling people about our market. farmer's market does have an effect on downtown. In June, 62% of people said the market they would be doing additional shopping and dining downtown that day while they were after the market. 90% of people said that the market has caused them to shop and dine downtown more. In June, 89% of people said the market was their primary reason for coming downtown. In October, towards the end of the market season, 45% of people came to the market every week. That is the same eyes on the downtown businesses every week, and while those people are downtown every week for the farmers market, they're also doing additional shopping and dining. The downtown West Bend Concourse bike race, riders love our course, and the rider numbers have been up the last 3 years. 75% of the riders are outside of Wisconsin, so this event brings cyclists to West Bend from different states and countries who might not have come to West Bend otherwise. Our car show this year, vehicle participation was down because of the weather, but 62% of vehicle participants lived outside of West Bend. And we estimate that this event draws 4,000 people, and that includes the 350 drivers that came. So in conclusion, the Downtown West Bend Association events, we have 42 events per year that bring 83,000 visitors to our downtown. The Diva Group hosts 6 events that bring 1,000 people to the downtown. So combining the bid funding for the marketing downtown, the Downtown West Bend Association spends $7,000, Diva Group about $5,000. So we're investing almost $2,000 to invite people to come downtown. And of course, each shop does their own marketing and shares the events. So 84,000 visitors for the event season downtown. That's 26 cents per visitor we are investing in when coming downtown. Any questions?
No, it's a great presentation. Thank you.
Well done.
I definitely liked being able to see the number of impressions and the number of people and quantifying those. So, yeah, thank you.
And my one comment is, again, reflecting these comments, a nice presentation. Thanks for putting some of the numbers together. My one concern is that the data really seems to be like just hand selected, or it doesn't seem like we're getting a full spectrum of a survey that you've taken. It's like one question here or one question there, and it's really a small percentage of the total amount of people that you suggest are actually at this event. If you've got 2,000 people a week, that's 8,000 people a month. I would think that I could get more than 80 people to respond to my survey in a month.
So for the farmers market, it was a dot survey, so people came up and answered it, and we had different questions every week, but these were the ones that you guys were interested in. So it's people who just walk by and participate. It's hard to get every single person.
I understand that. It just seems like a really small percentage of people. So, it maybe just moving forward, a suggestion to reach out a little bit more rather than waiting for people to come to you to offer input. If you're really interested in getting good data, you've got to work for it.
Yeah.
So, but this is great. Thank you.
Yes.
I question the Diva Group brings 1,000 people downtown. In our business, we have not noticed that type of traffic when Diva has events. There's no way there's 1,000 people downtown. I don't know how you came up with that.
Those numbers are combined of all 6 events. So it would be, each business, it's just a combination.
Even your bus rides, when you had the bus rides, how many are on the bus? Very few. If there's 2 or 3 people on those bus rides, sometimes it's the number here is way out of proportion. 1,000. At the beginning, when Diva first started it, I would say you had some traffic, and it might have been close to 800, maybe 700. But today, the Diva Group is not pulling in that many people anymore. No way 1,000 people.
That's 1,000.
I watched that pretty close this year with the events, and there's no walking traffic.
Herb, they're saying that's 1,000 people for the 6 events.
I know,
Okay.
but there still isn't that many.
Well, that's your opinion of it, and you're
I
welcome.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
I do have one retail business next door to my business, so I do see the traffic and am amazed at the traffic that the Diva events do drive there. And perhaps I'm seeing more of that because of where I'm located, near one of the participating Diva group participants, one of the retail businesses. So
And
I would say, based on the performance that I'm seeing and hearing from my neighbor, that it does drive those numbers. Now,
Well, I have the parking lot right next to us, and I can't even see the parking lot full.
You know, as one of the participating restaurants in the Diva Group events, I definitely see an uptick in business that day for sure. And as with all these events, one of the main parking spots is behind the old Ziegler building and behind BMO Harris in the parking lots. And for these events, I mean, it is amazing to watch those 2 parking lots just explode. So for all of these events, but anyways.
So I guess the question, okay, so we've got this, which is great. Are you going to come back with what you're looking
But
for?
you guys wanted results, so that's why I wanted to show results, and then we'll come back next month.
Okay. And Kathy, have you been helping them still, or what's the?
I have not been involved, but I'm always happy to help out if I can provide any input.
I appreciate you putting the information together. I think
Yep.
sometimes you come down to the market. I'm here almost every weekend,
Yeah.
but you never really know how many people are actually there. And it's great to see that I think the biggest thing is that we're bringing people from outside of West Bend in specifically for that, and that's our goal.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. The only other thing left on the agenda is any items for the next meeting. Any agenda items? We got to put the parking signs on.
Are we gonna have anything ready for next meeting on the Commons presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
And I'll get some stuff out early too.
okay.
All right.
It'll be all, for all of them.
And then we'll have the downtown marketing proposal.
Are they
Should
is
we-
the city coming back with information on the?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I don't know if Doug can get that done. If you get the cabling information by then, we can put it on. If not, I mean, it's not gonna do or die the Christmas decorations at this point, so. But I think it needs to be addressed sooner than later.
Yeah, we can do something.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.